The smell of charcoal and marinated chicken should have made me happy. It was one of those perfect late June afternoons in Burlington, Vermont, the kind where the humidity hadn't quite settled in yet, and the maple trees cast just the right amount of shade across our backyard. I stood at the kitchen window, watching my husband Tom flip burgers on the grill, his Red Sox cap backwards like he always wore it during our summer gatherings. 30 people. That's how many RSVPs we'd gotten for our annual neighborhood barbecue. The Hendersons from next door, my college roommate Lisa with her twins, Tom's work buddies, our daughter Mia's friends and their parentes, basically everyone who mattered in our little corner of the world. I'd spent 3 days preparing potato salad, marinating the meat, and making sure we had enough folding chairs borrowed from the church. But as I watched Tom laugh at something his coworker Brad said, something twisted in my stomach. His left hand was gripping the spatula, and for the 3rd week in a row, I could see the pale band of skin where his wedding ring used to be. "Mom, can I have a juice box?" Mia bounced into the kitchen, her blonde curls already escaping the ponytail I'd carefully crafted that morning. At 8 years old, she had Tom's easy smile and my stubborn streak, a combination that usually charmed everyone within a 5-mile radius. "Of course, sweetheart. The apple ones are in the cooler outside." I forced brightness into my voice, the same way I'd been forcing it for weeks now. She grabbed my hand, tugging me toward the sliding door. "Come on." Mrs. Patterson brought her famous brownies, and Uncle Jerry's doing that weird laugh again. Uncle Jerry wasn't really her uncle. He was Tom's college roommate who visited every summer from Boston. His laugh was indeed weird, a high-pitched wheeze that could be heard 3 houses down. Normally, it made me smile. Today, it just reminded me of all the things that used to feel normal in my marriage. The backyard was alive with conversation and the clink of beer bottles. Our wooden deck, which Tom had built himself 2 summers ago, was packed with neighbors balancing paper plates and catching up on each other's lives. The kids had claimed the trampoline, and I could see Mia's best friend Sophie bouncing with the kind of wild abandon that only 8-year-olds possess. "Rebecca!" My neighbor Carol waved from the picnic table where she was arranging a platter of corn on the cob. "This spread is incredible. You've outdone yourself again." I walked over, grateful for the distraction. Carol and her husband Mike had lived next door for 5 years, and she was the kind of neighbor who brought soup when you were sick and always remembered your birthday. Right now, she was exactly the friendly face I needed. "Thanks, Carol. Tom's been talking about firing up the new grill for weeks." The words felt strange in my mouth. We've been talking about a lot of things lately, but none of them involve grilling. "Speaking of Tom," she said, lowering her voice slightly, "Mike was asking if he's been working late a lot recently. He noticed Tom's car hasn't been in the driveway some evenings." My smile felt like plastic. You know how crazy things get at the insurance office during renewal season. It wasn't entirely a lie. Tom did work in insurance, and there were busy seasons. But renewal season was in March. It was now June. "Of course!" Carol nodded enthusiastically. "Mike's the same way with tax season. Sometimes I feel like a single mom for 3 months straight." The irony wasn't lost on me. These past 3 weeks, I'd felt like a single mom every day. "Rebecca!" Tom's voice carried across the yard. He was standing by the grill, holding up a platter of perfectly cooked burgers. "Food's ready." I helped Carol carry the corn to the main table, where our guests were already forming a line. The next 20 minutes were a blur of passing condiments, refilling drinks, and making sure everyone had what they needed. It was the kind of hosting I'd always prided myself on, anticipating needs, keeping conversations flowing, making sure no one felt left out. But even as I smiled and chatted, part of my mind kept wandering to Tom's missing ring. The story kept changing. First, it was at the jeweler's getting resized. Then he'd left it by the bathroom sink at work. Last week, he claimed it was irritating his skin because of the humid weather. "Mommy, why does Daddy look sad?" Mia appeared beside me, a half-eaten burger in her small hands. I followed her gaze to where Tom stood with Jerry and Brad, nodding at something one of them was saying. To everyone else, he probably looked fine. But Mia was right, there was something in his posture, the way he held his shoulders, that spoke of a man carrying weight he didn't want to share. "Maybe he's just tired from all this grilling, honey. It's hard work feeding 30 people. She considered this seriously, the way she considered everything. "Can I go play with Sophie on the trampoline?" "Sure, but be careful. And no double bouncing." As she skipped away, I found myself scanning the crowd. Lisa was deep in conversation with the Pattersons about their upcoming trip to Maine. The Peterson kids were playing cornhole with Tom's nephew. Mrs. Garcia from down the street was complimenting my potato salad recipe. Everything looked perfect. Everything except the growing, hollow feeling in my chest. "You okay, Becca?" Jerry appeared beside me, his weird laugh temporarily replaced by genuine concern. "You seem a million miles away." Jerry had known me almost as long as Tom had. We'd all met in college, and he'd been Tom's best man at our wedding 9 years ago. If anyone would notice when something was off, it would be him. "Just making sure everyone's having a good time," I said. "You know how it is." He studied my face for a moment, then glanced toward Tom. "Everything good with you two?" The question hung in the air between us, loaded with the weight of years of friendship. Jerry wasn't the type to pry, which made the question even more significant. "Of course," I said automatically. "Why would you ask?" Before he could answer, Mia's voice cut across the yard like a knife through butter. "Daddy, show Sophie your wedding ring. She doesn't believe you and Mommy are really married." The conversation around us didn't stop immediately. It was more like a wave. The people closest to Mia heard first and grew quiet, then their silence spread outward until even the adults by the cooler turned to look. Tom stood frozen by the grill, a piece of chicken halfway to the serving platter. His face had gone pale under his Red Sox cap. He looked down at his left hand as if seeing it for the first time. "I must have forgotten to put it on this morning." But Mia, bless her honest 8-year-old heart, wasn't satisfied with that answer. "But you haven't worn it in forever, Daddy. Mommy asked you about it last week, remember? And you said it was getting fixed, but Mrs. Patterson got her ring fixed in just 2 days. And that was like a month ago." The silence was deafening now. 30 people, all of whom had come to celebrate friendship and summer and the good life we'd built together, were now witnesses to the crack that had formed in the foundation of the Miller family. I felt every pair of eyes in that backyard, some curious, some sympathetic, some awkward with the kind of secondhand embarrassment that comes from witnessing someone else's private moment become very public. Tom's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Beside me, Jerry shifted uncomfortably. Carol looked like she wanted to disappear into her corn on the cob. But it was Mia, standing on the trampoline with her hands on her hips, who delivered the final blow to our perfect summer afternoon. "So where is it, Daddy? Where's your ring?" The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 seconds. 10 seconds that changed everything. Tom finally found his voice, though it came out rougher than usual. "Mia, sweetheart, why don't you go play? The grown-ups are talking. But I want to know." "Mia." I used my mom voice, the one that brooked no argument. "Go play with Sophie. Now." She looked between us, her 8-year-old intuition clearly picking up on something she didn't quite understand but recognized as important. With a small shrug that reminded me painfully of Tom, she bounced back into her game with the other kids. The adults were a different story. I could practically feel their discomfort radiating outward like heat from the grill. Carol was suddenly very interested in rearranging the condiment table. Lisa had picked up her twins and was heading toward the house under the pretense of finding the bathroom. The conversations that did resume were forced and overly bright. Tom cleared his throat and held up the platter of chicken. "Well, who wants some of this perfectly grilled poultry?" His attempt at lightening the mood fell flat, like a joke told at a funeral. Jerry, bless him, stepped in. "I'll take some of that. Been smelling it for the last hour." He moved toward Tom with the kind of deliberate casualness that comes from years of friendship and knowing when someone needs backup. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there and pretend that everything was fine, that my daughter hadn't just aired our dirty laundry in front of half the neighborhood. I couldn't keep smiling and passing potato salad while my marriage crumbled in real time. "I need to check on the desserts." I mumbled to no one in particular and headed toward the house. The kitchen felt like a sanctuary, even though I could still hear the forced conversations through the screen door. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes, trying to collect myself. The chocolate chip cookies I'd baked that morning sat cooling on the wire rack, perfect golden brown circles that somehow felt like a mockery now. "Rebecca!" Lisa's voice was soft behind me. "You okay, honey?" I turned to find my oldest friend standing in the doorway, her twin boys nowhere in sight. Lisa and I had been roommates at UVM, and she'd been my maid of honor. If anyone had earned the right to ask the hard questions, it was her. "The boys are with Tom," she said, reading my look. I told them Uncle Tom needed help with the grill. Uncle Tom. Mia called all our close friends aunt and uncle. It was sweet and old-fashioned, and right now it made my heart ache. "I don't know what to tell you, Lise." The words came out more honestly than I'd intended. "I honestly don't know." She moved closer, lowering her voice, even though we were alone. "How long has the ring been gone?" 3 weeks. Maybe 4. I rubbed my temples where a headache was starting to form. The stories keep changing. First it was being resized, then he left it at work, then it was bothering his skin. Yesterday, he said he thought he might have lost it at the gym. Lisa's expression shifted from concern to something sharper. "The gym he joined 2 months ago? The one that requires him to work late 3 nights a week?" I nodded, hating how pathetic it sounded when she said it like that. "Oh, sweetie." She pulled me into a hug that smelled like her familiar perfume and understanding. "Have you talked to him? Really talked?" "I've tried. Every time I bring it up, he changes the subject or gets defensive. Last week I asked him directly if he was having an affair, and he looked at me like I'd slapped him. Said I was being paranoid and watching too many daytime talk shows." Through the screen door, I could hear Tom's laugh. It sounded normal, relaxed even. Like a man enjoying a barbecue with friends, not someone whose marriage was falling apart. "Maybe he is just paranoid," Lisa said gently. "Maybe there's an innocent explanation." I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But there were other things, small things that had been adding up like drops of water wearing away stone. The phone calls he took in the other room. The way he jumped when I walked into his home office unexpectedly. The credit card charges at restaurants I'd never been to, always explained away as business lunches or grabbing food with Jerry. "Mom!" Mia's voice came from the sliding door. "Sophie's mom says they have to go soon. Can we have dessert now?" I wiped my eyes quickly and turned to face her. "Of course, baby. Help me carry these cookies outside." As we loaded cookies onto platters, Mia chattered about the trampoline and how high she could bounce, and whether we could get a pool next summer like the Hendersons. Normal 8-year-old, concerns that felt like lifelines to normalcy. But as we walked back outside, her hand in mine, I couldn't shake the feeling that this might be the last time our backyard would be filled with friends celebrating our family. That after today, after her innocent question had opened Pandora's box, things would never be quite the same. The party was winding down. Several families had already left, citing early mornings or bedtimes or any excuse to escape the lingering awkwardness. Tom was cleaning the grill with the focused intensity of a man, avoiding eye contact with his wife. "Rebecca, thank you so much," Mrs. Patterson said, approaching with her empty brownie plate. Everything was delicious. "I'm so glad you could come," I replied automatically, falling back into hostess mode. She hesitated for a moment, then leaned closer. "You know, dear, if you ever need to talk, Bill and I went through a rough patch about 10 years ago. Sometimes these things work themselves out." The kindness in her voice nearly broke me. Mrs. Patterson was 73 and had been married for 52 years. If anyone knew about working through rough patches, it was her. "Thank you," I managed. "That means a lot." As she walked away, I noticed other guests starting to gather their things. The natural end of a summer evening, but it felt loaded with significance tonight. Like people couldn't wait to leave, to get home, and probably discuss what they'd witnessed. "Mommy, can Sophie sleep over next weekend?" Mia bounced up to me, still full of 8-year-old energy despite the long day. "We'll see, sweetie. We'll have to ask her parents." "Ask us what?" Sophie's mother, Jennifer, approached with her daughter in tow. "Sophie wants to sleep over next weekend," I said, grateful for the normal parenting conversation. Jennifer glanced toward Tom, who was still aggressively scrubbing grill grates. "Sure, that sounds fun. Maybe Saturday night." As they made plans, I found myself wondering if there would be a next weekend. If Tom would still be here, still be part of our Saturday night sleepovers and Sunday morning pancakes. The thought hit me like a physical blow, and I had to excuse myself to collect empty plates just to have something to do with my shaking hands. By 8 o'clock, only Jerry remained. He was helping Tom cover the grill while Mia played on the trampoline in the fading daylight. I was loading the dishwasher when I heard them talking on the deck. Man, that was awkward as hell, Jerry's voice carried through the screen door. Tell me about it. Tom sounded tired. Kids say the damnedest things. Tom. Jerry's tone shifted, became more serious. What's going on? And don't give me some bullshit about the ring being at the jeweler's. I saw your face when Mia asked. There was a long pause. I found myself holding my breath, straining to hear Tom's response. It's complicated, Ja. Complicated how? You're either married or you're not. You either lost your ring or you took it off. Another pause. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. I took it off. The plate I was holding slipped from my hands and shattered against the kitchen floor. The sound was deafening in the quiet house, and I knew both men had heard it. Through the screen door, I could see Jerry looking toward the kitchen with concern. But it was Tom's expression that stopped my heart. He wasn't looking toward the sound. He was staring at the ground, his shoulders slumped in defeat, like a man who had finally been caught in a lie he was tired of telling. The shattered plate lay scattered across my kitchen floor like pieces of my marriage, sharp fragments of what used to be whole. I stared down at them, oddly paralyzed by something so simple to clean up. From outside, I could hear the murmur of voices, but not the words. Jerry and Tom, having the conversation I'd been trying to have for weeks. Mom, what happened? Mia appeared in the doorway, her face flushed from bouncing. Just dropped a plate, sweetheart. Stay back so you don't cut your feet. As I swept up the pieces, my hands were steadier than I expected. Maybe because part of me was relieved. After weeks of walking on eggshells, wondering if I was losing my mind, fabricating problems that didn't exist, I finally had confirmation. He took it off. Uncle Jerry's leaving, Mia announced, pressing her face against the screen door. He's hugging Daddy for a really long time. Through the mesh, I could see them embracing with the kind of intensity that men usually reserve for funerals and airport goodbyes. Jerry said something I couldn't hear, clapped Tom on the shoulder, and headed toward the front of the house. A few minutes later, I heard his car start and pull away. Then footsteps on the deck. Tom came through the sliding door, moving like a man walking to his execution. Mia, sweetie, why don't you go get ready for your bath? I said, not taking my eyes off my husband. But I'm not dirty. Bath, Tom said quietly. Listen to your mom. Something in his tone must have registered with her because she didn't argue. She just looked between us with those too perceptive 8-year-old eyes and headed upstairs. We stood in the kitchen in silence, the dishwasher humming between us like white noise. Tom took off his Red Sox cap and ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd seen thousands of times over the course of our relationship but somehow felt foreign now. So, I said finally, you took it off. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. Yeah. When? About a month ago. His voice was barely above a whisper. A month. Not 3 weeks, not 4. A full month of lies and excuses and making me feel like I was crazy for asking questions. Why? This time he did look at me, and what I saw in his face wasn't guilt or defiance. It was exhaustion. The kind of bone-deep tiredness that comes from carrying a secret too heavy for one person. Because I didn't feel married anymore. The honesty of it hit me like a slap. Not because I met someone else, or because I made a mistake. Because he didn't feel married anymore. What does that mean exactly? He leaned against the counter, the same counter where we'd shared morning coffee and homework help and 1,000 mundane moments that make up a marriage. It means I wake up every morning feeling like I'm playing a role. Husband, father, provider, but underneath it all, I feel like I'm suffocating. Suffocating. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. I'm suffocating you. Not you, he said quickly. Not Mia. Just this. All of this. He gestured around the kitchen, and I knew he meant more than just the room. He meant the mortgage and the neighborhood barbecues and the careful routine we'd built over 9 years of marriage. Is there someone else? I asked, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. He was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, I found my answer. Her name's Amanda, he said finally. She works at the gym. Of course, the gym. The 3 nights a week gym that had become so important to his health and wellness routine. How long? 2 months. Maybe a little longer. Before the ring came off. Before he stopped feeling married. He'd stopped feeling married after he started feeling something else for someone else. Are you sleeping with her? Another pause. Yes. I nodded, absorbing the word like a diagnosis. Cancer. Diabetes. Adultery. Things that happen to other people, other families, other marriages that weren't as solid as ours. Do you love her? This time the pause was longer, and when he answered, his voice was thick with something I couldn't identify. I think so. Maybe. I don't know. I leaned against the island, needing the support. Outside, the last traces of summer daylight were fading, and I could hear the automatic sprinklers turning on in the Hendersons' yard. Normal sounds of normal life continuing around us. What do you want, Tom? Do you want a divorce? I don't know. He rubbed his face with both hands. I know I can't keep living like this. Pretending everything's fine when it's not. Lying to you, to Mia, to everyone. But you were fine lying for 2 months. I wasn't fine, he said sharply, the first real emotion I'd heard from him all evening. I haven't been fine. I've been dying inside, Rebecca. Every day, a little bit more. So this is my fault. Our marriage is so terrible that you had to find comfort elsewhere. That's not what I said. Then what are you saying? He looked at me with eyes that had once promised forever and said, I'm saying I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a long time. And I don't think you have been either. The accusation hung between us, and the worst part was that he wasn't entirely wrong. When was the last time I felt truly happy? Not content, not satisfied, but genuinely happy? When was the last time I'd looked forward to Tom coming home from work, or felt excited about a weekend together? So what now? I asked. I don't know. That's not good enough, Tom. We have a daughter upstairs who's going to ask questions tomorrow. We have a mortgage and commitments and a life we've built together. I don't know isn't good enough anymore. Before he could answer, we heard small feet on the stairs. Mia appeared in the doorway in her pajamas, hair damp from her bath, holding her favorite stuffed elephant. I'm ready for story time, she announced, looking between us. Are you guys fighting? No, baby, I said automatically. We're just talking. She studied our faces with the brutal honesty of childhood. You look like you're fighting. Your faces look mad and sad at the same time. Tom knelt down to her level, and I could see him making the effort to shift into dad mode. We're working through some grown-up stuff, kiddo. But you know what never changes. How much we love you, they said together, and despite everything, I felt my heart crack a little more. Even in the middle of our collapse, we were still a unit when it came to her. Can I sleep in your bed tonight? She asked, directing the question to both of us. Tom and I looked at each other over her head. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that the bed she wants to crawl into might not have both parents in it much longer? Just for tonight, I said. But Mommy and Daddy need to finish talking first. About what? Grown-up stuff, Tom repeated gently. Go brush your teeth, and we'll be up in a few minutes. As her footsteps faded up the stairs, we were left alone again with our broken marriage and the weight of decisions that would affect more than just us. We can't keep doing this, I said quietly. Whatever this is, we can't keep doing it in front of her. Tom nodded. I know. So what's it going to be? Are you going to end it with Amanda and try to work on us? Or are you going to move out? The question felt surreal coming out of my mouth. 6 hours ago, I'd been worried about having enough hamburger buns. Now I was asking my husband to choose between his family and his girlfriend. I need some time to think, he said. How much time? A few days. Maybe a week. Where will you go? Jerry said I could stay with him. Of course. Jerry, who had hugged him like he was going to war. Jerry, who had known what was coming before I did. And after your week of thinking, I'll have an answer. I nodded, though it felt like agreeing to my own execution. 1 week. But Tom, whatever you decide, we tell Mia together. And we do what's best for her, not what's easiest for us. Agreed. He started to leave the kitchen, then turned back. Rebecca, for what it's worth, I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen this way, I said. And now we all have to live with it. As his footsteps faded up the stairs, I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of our barbecue and the fragments of our life together. Tomorrow, I'd have to face the neighbors who had witnessed our private moment become public. I'd have to explain to Mia why Daddy was staying at Uncle Jerry's. I'd have to figure out how to hold together a life that suddenly felt as fragile as the plate I dropped. But tonight, I had to go upstairs and read bedtime stories and pretend that her world wasn't about to change in ways she couldn't yet understand. I woke up to the sound of Mia singing in the shower some pop song she'd learned from a friend at school, slightly off-key but full of 8-year-old confidence. For just a moment, lying there with my eyes closed, I could pretend it was any other Sunday morning. That Tom was downstairs making his terrible coffee and burning toast, that we'd spend the day doing laundry and grocery shopping and all the mundane tasks that make up a family's weekend. Then I rolled over and saw the empty space beside me, the pillow still dented from where he'd slept restlessly until 5 a.m. when he'd finally given up and gone downstairs. I'd listened to him move around the kitchen, making coffee, probably sitting at the table staring at his phone. At 6:30, I'd heard the front door close and his car start. He was gone. Not permanently, not yet, but gone to Jerry's house to think, leaving me to figure out how to explain his absence to our daughter without destroying her 8-year-old sense of security. "Mom!" Mia's voice carried down the hall. "I can't find my pink socks." "Check the laundry basket in our room," I called back, forcing normalcy into my voice. Our room. How long would I be able to call it that? I pulled on my robe and headed downstairs, following the familiar morning routine, even though nothing felt familiar anymore. The kitchen still smelled faintly of barbecue smoke from last night, and the counters were clean. Tom had loaded the dishwasher before he left. A small kindness that somehow made everything worse. There was a note by the coffee maker, written in his careful handwriting. "Will call tonight to talk to Mia. Left my number for Jerry's on the fridge. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." 2 words that covered a multitude of sins, but didn't begin to address the practical reality of explaining to our daughter why Daddy wasn't here for Sunday morning pancakes. "Mom, where's Dad?" Mia appeared in the kitchen, hair still damp, wearing mismatched socks because, let's be honest, the pink ones were probably lost in the Bermuda Triangle of our laundry room. "He had to go help Uncle Jerry with something," I said, which was technically true. Uncle Jerry was helping him sort out his life, which definitely qualified as something. On a Sunday morning, she climbed onto her favorite bar stool and swung her legs. "That's weird." Everything was weird. That was the problem. "What do you want for breakfast?" I asked, deflecting. "Pancakes. With chocolate chips. And can we make them in fun shapes like Dad does?" My heart clenched. Tom was the pancake artist in our family. I made perfectly round, boring pancakes. He made dinosaurs and hearts, and once, memorably, a remarkably accurate Mickey Mouse head. "I'll try," I said, "but you know my pancakes aren't as creative as Daddy's." "That's okay. I can help." And she did help, measuring flour with the intense concentration of a scientist, cracking eggs with only minimal shell debris, chattering about the sleepover at Sophie's house and whether we could go to the lake this week, and a dozen other topics that had nothing to do with the fact that her world was quietly shifting beneath her feet. We were just sitting down to eat our slightly lopsided pancakes when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it." Mia jumped up before I could stop her. Through the front window, I could see Lisa's car in the driveway, and I felt a wave of gratitude that surprised me with its intensity. I texted her at 7 a.m. with a simple message. "Can you come over?" She responded immediately, "On my way." "Aunt Lisa!" I heard Mia squeal from the foyer. "Want some pancakes?" Mom made them, so they're not as pretty as Dad's, but they taste good. Lisa appeared in the kitchen doorway with Mia attached to her leg, carrying 2 large coffees, and wearing the expression of someone who'd been briefed on the situation. "Those pancakes look perfect to me," she said, setting down the coffee and giving me a meaningful look. "Mind if I steal your mom for a few minutes, Mia? Grown-up talk. More grown-up talk." Mia's face scrunched in the way it did when she was processing something she didn't quite understand. "You guys have been doing a lot of grown-up talking lately." "That's what grown-ups do," Lisa said easily. "We talk about boring things like taxes and grocery lists, and whether it's going to rain." Mia seemed satisfied with this explanation and returned to her pancakes, drowning them in enough syrup to fuel a small aircraft. Lisa and I moved to the living room, where she handed me the larger coffee and waited. "He's gone," I said without preamble. "Staying at Jerry's. There's someone else. Her name's Amanda." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the information. "Oh, honey. 2 months," he said. "Maybe longer." And he took his ring off a month ago because he doesn't feel married anymore. What a bastard, Lisa said with the fierce loyalty of a friend who'd known me for 15 years. The thing is, I don't think he's wrong. The words surprised me as they came out. About not feeling married, I mean. When was the last time we really talked about anything that mattered? When was the last time we were excited to see each other? That doesn't excuse cheating, Lisa said firmly. If he was unhappy, he should have talked to you. Gone to counseling. Something other than finding comfort in another woman's bed. From the kitchen came the sound of Mia humming and the clink of silverware against plates. Normal sounds of normal life, continuing, while we discussed the end of my marriage in hushed tones. What are you going to do? Lisa asked. I don't know. He asked for a week to think, and I said yes. But Lisa, what if he chooses her? What if he decides he'd rather start over with someone new than try to fix what we have? Then you'll figure out how to be okay without him, Lisa said with more confidence than I felt. You'll figure out how to co-parent and how to rebuild and how to show Mia that sometimes relationships end but love doesn't. The love for her, I mean. I'm scared, I admitted. Not just about being alone, but about screwing up her life. About becoming a statistic. About turning into one of those bitter divorced women who warns other wives not to trust their husbands. You won't, Lisa said firmly. Because that's not who you are. And because even if Tom is being a selfish ass right now, he's still Mia's father. Whatever happens between you two, she needs both her parents to be okay. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to Mia sing in the kitchen. She'd moved on from pop songs to something she was making up about pancakes and rainbows and her stuffed elephant's adventures. Do you think I should fight for him? I asked. Should I be calling this Amanda woman, confronting her? Should I be begging Tom to come home? Do you want to fight for him? The question hung between us, and I realized I didn't have a ready answer. A month ago, the answer would have been an immediate yes. But sitting here now, in the wreckage of our picture-perfect life, I wasn't sure. I want to fight for our family, I said finally, but I don't know if that's the same thing as fighting for him. Before Lisa could respond, Mia appeared in the doorway, syrup smeared on her chin and a serious expression on her face. Mom, is Dad coming home tonight? The question I'd been dreading, asked with the directness that only children possess. I don't think so, sweetie. Remember, he's helping Uncle Jerry. For how long? I looked at Lisa, who gave me an encouraging nod. We're not sure yet. Maybe a few days. Mia climbed onto the couch between us, curling up against my side in that boneless way kids have. Is it because of what I said yesterday? About his ring? My heart broke a little more. Of course, she would blame herself. That's what children do, they make everything about them, especially the bad things. No, baby. Absolutely not. I pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. What you said yesterday was a perfectly normal question. You didn't do anything wrong. But everyone got quiet and weird after I asked. Sometimes grown-ups get quiet when they're thinking about important things, Lisa said gently. It had nothing to do with you being bad or wrong. Are you and Dad getting divorced? The question came out matter-of-factly, like she was asking about the weather. I felt Lisa tense beside me. We hadn't prepared for this level of directness. Why would you ask that, sweetheart? Because Sophie's parents got divorced last year, and first her dad moved out to think about things, and then they had lots of grown-up talks, and then he moved to an apartment across town. She looked up at me with eyes that were far too wise for 8 years old. Is that what's happening? I glanced at Lisa, who nodded slightly. Mia was clearly more perceptive than we'd given her credit for. Maybe honesty, age-appropriate honesty, was better than elaborate explanations. Dad and I are having some problems, I said carefully. We're trying to figure out how to fix them. Sometimes that takes time and space to think clearly. What kind of problems? How do you explain adult relationship issues to a child? How do you say that sometimes people grow apart, that sometimes they make choices that hurt the people they love, that sometimes love isn't enough to overcome the accumulated weight of years of taking each other for granted? Sometimes grown-ups stop talking to each other the way they should, I said finally, and sometimes they forget how to be happy together. We're trying to remember. Mia considered this with the seriousness she brought to most things. Can I talk to Dad? He said he'd call tonight. Good. I want to tell him that even if you guys are having problems, I still love both of you. And that I think you should come home soon because you make really sad pancakes when you're upset. Despite everything, I laughed. Sad pancakes? They were droopy. Dad's pancakes are happy. Yours were droopy and worried looking. Well, I'll work on making happier pancakes, I said, kissing the top of her head. Okay, can I go call Sophie and tell her dad's staying at Uncle Jerry's? She'll want to know, because she was worried about the ring thing yesterday too. After she skipped off to find the cordless phone, Lisa and I sat in the kind of comfortable silence that comes from years of friendship. She's handling this better than you are, Lisa observed. She doesn't know the whole truth yet. Maybe that's okay for now. Maybe 8-year-olds don't need to know about affairs and midlife crises and the messy realities of adult relationships. From upstairs, we could hear Mia chattering to Sophie, her voice animated and normal. She was resilient in the way children are, adapting to new realities with a flexibility that adults lose somewhere along the way. Lisa, I said suddenly, do you think Tom and I can fix this? She was quiet for a long moment, and I appreciated that she was really considering the question rather than offering empty reassurances. I think if you both want to fix it, really want to, then maybe. But Rebecca, he has to want it. You can't save a marriage by yourself. And you can't compete with the excitement of a new relationship while carrying the baggage of an old one. So what do I do this week while he's thinking? You think too. You figure out what you actually want, not what you think you should want. You decide if Tom comes back apologetic and willing to do the work. Is that enough? Can you forgive him? Can you trust him again? And if he doesn't come back, can you be okay? Can you build a good life for you and Mia? The questions felt overwhelming, but also necessary. 4 weeks, I'd been focused on Tom, his missing ring, his lies, his choices. I hadn't really considered what I wanted beyond keeping our family intact. I should probably call a lawyer, I said, the words feeling strange and final. Probably. Even if you reconcile, you should know what you're facing financially. Knowledge is power, especially in situations like this. We were interrupted by the phone ringing. Mia came running downstairs with the cordless phone pressed against her chest. It's Dad. He wants to talk to you first. My stomach clenched. I hadn't expected to hear from him so soon. I took the phone and walked into the kitchen, gesturing for Lisa to stay with Mia. Hello, Tom. Hi. His voice sounded tired, older than it had just yesterday. I wanted to check on Mia. And you. How are you doing? We're okay. She asked if we're getting divorced. A long pause. What did you tell her? That we're having problems and trying to figure out how to fix them. She's smarter than we give her credit for. She always has been. There was affection in his voice, the kind of uncomplicated love he'd always had for our daughter. Whatever else was broken between us, that remained solid. Tom, I said, lowering my voice even though Mia was in the other room. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Is this about Amanda, or is this about us? Would you be questioning our marriage if you hadn't met her? Another long pause. I could hear traffic in the background and realized he wasn't at Jerry's house. He was driving somewhere, maybe just driving to think. I don't know, he said finally. Maybe. I've been unhappy for a while, Rebecca, but meeting her made me realize that I could feel different. Excited about someone. Like myself again. Like himself again. The phrase cut deep because I understood it. When had we stopped making each other feel like ourselves? When had we started feeling like performances of who we used to be? So what happens now? I asked. I don't know. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I honestly don't know. I feel like I'm standing at a fork in the road, and both paths lead to hurting people I care about. You already hurt people you care about, I said quietly. The question now is whether you're going to make it worse or try to make it better. Can I talk to Mia? Of course. I called her into the kitchen and handed over the phone, listening to her bright chatter about pancakes and sleepovers and whether they could go to the lake when he got back from helping Uncle Jerry. Normal father-daughter conversation that felt both precious and fragile. After she hung up and went back to the living room, I stood alone in my kitchen again, surrounded by the remnants of our normal life. The coffee maker Tom had programmed before he left. The stack of mail we needed to sort together. The grocery list I'd started, still including his favorite cereal. Through the window, I could see the Hendersons setting up a sprinkler for their kids, and Mrs. Patterson working in her garden. Normal Sunday activities in a normal neighborhood where normal families lived normal lives. But we weren't normal anymore. We were the couple whose marriage had started unraveling at their own barbecue, the family whose private pain had become public knowledge, the people the neighbors would talk about in hushed tones over coffee and casseroles. "You okay?" Lisa appeared beside me, coffee in hand. "No," I said honestly, "but I will be. One way or another, I'll figure out how to be okay." "Yes, you will. And you know what? Whether Tom comes home or not, you're going to be stronger for having survived this. Mia's going to see her mother handle a crisis with grace and dignity, and that's going to teach her things about resilience that no parenting book could ever convey." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Outside, the Hendersons' children were shrieking with delight as they ran through the sprinkler, their joy infectious even through the window. Life was continuing all around us, moving forward with or without our participation. Tomorrow I would call a lawyer. I would start making practical plans for practical realities. I would figure out how to be a single mother, just in case. I would learn to make happy pancakes. But today, I would take care of my daughter and myself. I would answer her questions honestly and age-appropriately. I would let myself grieve for the marriage I thought I had while acknowledging the marriage we actually had. And I would wait to see what Tom decided when his week of thinking was over. Because ultimately, that's all any of us can do when our carefully constructed lives fall apart. We pick up the pieces, we take care of the people who depend on us, and we wait to see what emerges from the rubble. Sometimes it's something better than what we had before. Sometimes it's just different. But it's always ours to build, whatever shape it takes. The phone rang again, interrupting my thoughts. This time it was my mother, calling for our weekly Sunday check-in. In a few minutes, I would have to decide how much to tell her, how to explain that her son-in-law was having a midlife crisis and her granddaughter was asking questions I couldn't fully answer. But first, I walked back into the living room where Mia was building an elaborate fort out of couch cushions with Lisa's help, her face bright with concentration and 8-year-old architectural ambition. "Can I help?" I asked. "Yes. We need someone to test if it's sturdy enough," Mia said seriously. "Lisa's too big, but you're just right." So I crawled into my daughter's blanket fort and let her explain the complex engineering principles she'd employed, and for a few minutes, I forgot about lawyers and custody arrangements and the uncertain future stretching ahead of us. For a few minutes, we were just a mother and daughter building something together, making it as strong as we could, hoping it would weather whatever storms might come.